I trusted her with everything. But now I'm drowning in debt. How far would you go to repay a debt? And at what cost?
In the bustling city of Lagos, Chuka worked diligently as a bank employee. Every day, he handled countless transactions, processed loans, and assisted clients in managing their finances. Despite the stress of his job, Chuka found comfort in the thought of returning home to his girlfriend, Maku. She was the light of his life, or so he thought. Maku, on the other hand, had a different story. She had been unemployed for months, but instead of seeking a job, she found herself drawn to the allure of gambling. It started innocently enough, small bets here and there, but soon, Maku was hooked. She borrowed money from Chuka multiple times, claiming it was for necessities. Chuka, trusting her completely, never questioned her intentions. He even took out a loan from the bank to help her when she said she needed to start a small business. One day, as Chuka was reviewing his finances, he noticed something alarming. The loan he had taken out for Maku's business was gone, with nothing to show for it. Suspicious, he decided to confront Maku. "Maku, where's the money for the business? I've noticed the loan is gone, and I don't see any progress," Chuka asked gently, not wanting to accuse her outright. Maku hesitated, her eyes darting nervously. "Oh, Chuka. The business idea didn't work out. I lost it all," she lied. But Chuka wasn't easily fooled. His experience as a bank employee had taught him to spot inconsistencies. He pressed further, and finally, Maku broke down. She confessed everything, how she had used the money to gamble, hoping to win big and repay him, but instead, she lost it all. Chuka felt a wave of anger and disappointment wash over him. "Maku, you borrowed money from me so many times, and each time I believed you. I even took out a loan to help you, and now you're telling me it's all gone. This is unacceptable." Maku pleaded with Chuka for forgiveness, promising she would change, but Chuka had made up his mind. "Maku, I can't continue like this. You've broken my trust too many times. I want you to repay the loan you owe me, and after that, we're done." Maku was devastated. She had no money, no job, and now, no Chuka. Desperate, she tried to borrow more money, but no one was willing to lend to her. The word had spread about her gambling addiction, and no one wanted to risk it. Days turned into weeks, and Maku found herself sinking deeper into despair. The weight of the loan she owed Chuka was a constant reminder of her mistakes. She knew she had to pay him back, but how? With no other options, Maku made a decision that would change her life forever. She became a prostitute, selling her body to pay off the loan. Each night was a nightmare, but she pushed through, knowing that every naira she earned was one step closer to repaying Chuka. Maku's new life was a far cry from what she had imagined for herself. The once vibrant and lively woman was now a shell of her former self, weighed down by guilt and shame. But she was determined to pay off the loan, no matter the cost. Maku walks through the crowded streets, her eyes fixed on the ground. The vibrant city, alive with activity, feels distant to her. People move past her, their laughter and conversations blending into a distant hum. Her heart races, and her thoughts spiral as she contemplates the choice she's about to make. In a city that never sleeps, Maku's world had come to a standstill. Every step she took felt heavier, as if the weight of her decisions pressed down on her shoulders. She had tried everything to repay the loan and mend the pieces of her shattered life. But no matter how hard she worked, the debt loomed over her like a dark cloud. She stops in front of a run-down building with a flickering neon sign. The words are barely legible, but she knows where she is. Her hands tremble as she pushes open the door and steps inside. The club is dimly lit, with the air thick from cigarette smoke. The low hum of music vibrates through the floor, and the smell of alcohol lingers in the air. Maku stands at the entrance, feeling out of place. The noise, the lights, and the people, everything is overwhelming. The club was a world away from the life Maku had once known. The vibrant colors and loud music were a stark contrast to the quiet, simple life she had left behind. But desperation had driven her here, to a place where she never imagined she would find herself. She takes a deep breath and moves towards the bar, her eyes scanning the room nervously. She feels the stares of a few patrons but avoids making eye contact. When she reaches the bar, she hesitates before speaking. "What can I get you?" Maku's voice is barely audible over the music. "I'm looking for work." The bartender, a middle-aged woman with a hardened expression, gives Maku a long, assessing look. She nods towards a door at the back of the club. "Talk to the boss, he'll let you know if there's something for you." Maku nods and walks towards the door, her heart pounding in her chest. As she pushes it open, she feels like she's crossing a line she can never come back from. The office is small and cluttered, with papers and bottles scattered across the desk. The boss, a large man with a rough demeanor, sits behind the desk, flipping through a stack of bills. He barely looks up when Maku enters. "You need something?" Maku swallows hard, her voice shaking. "I'm looking for work. I'll do anything." The boss looks up, his eyes narrowing as he studies her. He leans back in his chair, a smirk playing on his lips. "Anything, huh? You sure about that?" Maku nods, though her stomach churns with fear. "Yes. I need the money. I have to pay back a loan." The boss raises an eyebrow, then shrugs. "All right, but this isn't easy work, you need to be tough. Can you handle that?" Maku hesitates for a moment but then nods again. "I can handle it." With those words, Maku sealed her fate. She had crossed a line, stepping into a world she knew little about, driven by the need to repay the loan that had upended her life. But as she stood in that cramped office, fear gnawing at her insides, she couldn't help but wonder if there was still a way out, if she could somehow find a path back to the life she once knew. Maku leaves the club, her mind racing with thoughts of what she had just agreed to. The city feels colder now, the night air biting at her skin. She wraps her arms around herself, trying to hold on to some semblance of warmth. Every step Maku took felt like she was walking further away from who she used to be. The debt, the loan that hung over her, had driven her to this point, where survival meant compromising the very essence of who she was. But in the quiet of the night, as she walked through the city streets, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing something far more precious than money. She was losing herself. Maku sits on her bed, staring at the crumpled bills in her hand. It wasn't much, but it was enough to make a payment on the loan. She had finally made some progress, but the cost weighed heavily on her heart. Maku knew that the money she held was tainted, earned through desperation and choices she never thought she'd have to make. But as she stared at the bills, she reminded herself of why she was doing this. Why she had agreed to work in that club. The loan, the debt that had driven a wedge between her and Chuka, was a burden she couldn't carry alone. She had to repay it, no matter what it took. She lies back on the bed, staring up at the ceiling. The room feels suffocating, the walls closing in around her. She tries to sleep, but her mind won't stop racing. Is this really the only way? Is there no other choice? She closes her eyes, trying to shut out the thoughts that haunt her. But sleep doesn't come easily. The night stretches on, and Maku is left alone with her fears and regrets. Maku walks back to the club the next night, her heart heavy with dread. She knows what awaits her, but she pushes down her fear, reminding herself of the loan, the debt she must repay. The club is just as it was the night before, dimly lit, filled with smoke and noise. Maku makes her way to the back room, where the boss waits for her. The room is small, with a single bed pushed against the wall. The boss stands by the door, watching as Maku enters. "You ready?" Maku nods, though her hands shake. "I'm ready." The boss gives a curt nod and leaves the room, closing the door behind him. Maku is left alone, her heart pounding in her chest. Maku stood in that room, her mind racing with thoughts of what she was about to do. The fear, the shame, the guilt, they all swirled together in a storm of emotions that threatened to overwhelm her. But she pushed it all down, focusing on the one thing that mattered, the loan, the debt that had brought her here. She takes a deep breath and sits on the bed, waiting for the door to open. The nights blur together as Maku continues to work at the club, each one harder than the last. The money she earns goes straight to the loan, but no matter how much she pays, it never seems to be enough. She walks the same streets night after night, her eyes dull, her spirit broken. The city that once held so much promise now feels like a prison, each corner a reminder of the choices she's made. With each night that passed, Maku felt herself slipping further away from the person she once was. The weight of the loan, the debt that had driven her to this point, pressed down on her, crushing any hope she had left. But even as she sank deeper into despair, she held on to the faintest glimmer of hope, that one day, she would be free, and the debt would be repaid. Maku sits at the small table in her apartment, counting the money she's earned. It's not much, but it's enough to make another payment on the loan. She carefully places the bills in an envelope, her hands trembling. "I'm doing this for you, Chuka. I'm doing this so I can repay the loan, so I can make things right." She tries to convince herself that she's doing the right thing, that this is the only way. But deep down, she knows the truth. Maku knew that the path she had chosen was one of pain and sacrifice. But she also knew that she couldn't turn back now. The loan, the debt that had torn her life apart, was a burden she had to bear alone. And so, she continued, night after night, hoping that one day, the weight of that burden would be lifted. Maku walks through the city, her eyes fixed on the ground. The vibrant lights and sounds of the city feel distant to her, as if she's trapped in a world she no longer belongs to. She reaches the club, but this time, she doesn't go inside. Instead, she stands outside, staring at the building, her heart heavy with doubt. For the first time, Maku hesitated. The loan, the debt that had driven her to this point, still loomed over her, but something inside her had changed. She couldn't keep doing this, couldn't keep selling pieces of herself to pay off a debt that seemed never ending. She turns away from the club, walking in the opposite direction. She doesn't know where she's going, but she knows she can't go back. Maku sits on her bed, the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She knows that without the money from the club, she won't be able to make the next payment on the loan. But the thought of going back to that life fills her with dread. Maku says, "I can't keep doing this. I can't keep losing myself, night after night. There has to be another way." She lies back on the bed staring up at the ceiling. The room is silent, the only sound her own breathing. Maku knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that the loan, the debt that had consumed her life, would still be there, waiting. But she also knew that she couldn't keep going down the path she had chosen. It was time to find another way, to reclaim the life she had lost. The next morning, Maku walks through the city, her steps lighter than they've been in weeks. The sun shines down, warming her skin, and for the first time in a long time, she feels a glimmer of hope. She doesn't know how she's going to repay the loan, but she knows she'll find a way, one that doesn't involve losing herself in the process. Loan, the debt that had driven her to the brink, was still there, but she knew she could face it. She had made her decision, and now, it was time to find a new path. A path that would lead her back to the person she once was. One evening, after a particularly grueling night, Maku returned to her small apartment, exhausted. She had nearly saved enough to repay the loan, but at what cost? Her body was bruised, her spirit broken, and the vibrant spark in her eyes was long gone. As she sat on her bed, counting the money she had earned, there was a knock on the door. Startled, Maku hesitated before opening it. To her shock, it was Chuka. "Maku, what have you done to yourself?" Chuka asked, his voice filled with concern. He had heard rumors about her new life and had come to see if it was true. Maku couldn't hold back her tears. "Chuka, I did this for you. To repay the loan. I didn't know any other way." Chuka was speechless. He had wanted his money back, but not like this. Seeing Maku in this state made him realize the depth of her desperation. Chuka sat down with Maku, trying to understand her situation. "Maku, I never wanted this for you. I just wanted you to be honest with me. The loan was never worth this." Maku wiped her tears, her voice trembling. "I know I made mistakes, but I was so lost. I wanted to make things right, but I ended up ruining everything." Chuka sighed, looking at the woman he once loved. "Maku, I don't know if we can fix what's been broken, but we need to find a way to end this cycle. Let's figure out a plan, together." As they talked late into the night, it became clear that their story was far from over. Maku still had a significant amount of the loan to repay, and Chuka knew they had to find a solution that didn't involve further self-destruction. Their journey was just beginning, and the path ahead was uncertain. Would they be able to mend their broken relationship? The days following Chuka's visit were a blur for Maku. She couldn't shake the shame of what she had become, but she also felt a strange sense of hope. Chuka's words lingered in her mind. "We need to find a way to end this cycle." Maku knew that she couldn't continue on the path she was on, but she also didn't want to drag Chuka further into her mess. She decided to take a step that she had avoided for too long, seeking help. One morning Maku found herself standing outside a small counseling center in Lagos. She had heard about it from a former client who had managed to turn his life around. The counselor was a kind woman named Mama Nkechi, who specialized in helping people with addictions. Maku walked into the center, her heart pounding. She explained her situation to Mama Nkechi, who listened patiently. "You've been through a lot, Maku," Mama Nkechi said softly. "But the first step to recovery is admitting you need help. I'm proud of you for coming here." Maku nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I don't know how to pay off the loan or fix my relationship with Chuka. I feel like I've lost everything." Mama Nkechi smiled warmly. "We'll take it one step at a time. First, you need to heal yourself. Then we can talk about the loan and your relationship. It's going to be a long journey, but you don't have to do it alone." Maku started attending counseling sessions regularly. She slowly opened up about her gambling addiction, her struggles with money, and her complicated feelings for Chuka. With Mama Nkechi's guidance, Maku began to understand the root of her problems and how to take control of her life again. Meanwhile, Chuka was dealing with his own emotions. He felt torn between his feelings for Maku and the betrayal he had experienced. Every time he thought about the loan and what Maku had done to repay it, a mix of anger and sadness welled up inside him. One day, as Chuka was at work, he found himself distracted by thoughts of Maku. He wondered if she was okay, if she had found a way to cope with her struggles. Finally, he decided to call her. "Maku, how are you?" Chuka asked cautiously. Maku hesitated before responding. "I'm doing better, Chuka. I've been seeing a counselor, trying to sort out my life. I know I have a long way to go, but I'm trying." Chuka felt a wave of relief. I'm glad to hear that. I've been thinking about us, about the loan, and everything that's happened. Maybe we can find a way to move forward, together. Will she find the strength to overcome the new challenges ahead, or will the past drag her back into despair? Don't miss the next episode to find out. Stay tuned for part 2 of A Couple Named Chuka and Maku. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next in this gripping story of love, debt, and redemption. Their small business began to grow, slowly but surely. Maku found joy in her work, and Chuka was impressed by her dedication. Together, they managed to pay off a significant portion of the loan, and for the first time in a long while, they began to see a future beyond their mistakes. But their journey was far from over. The loan still hung over them, a reminder of the past that they were trying to leave behind. And while they had made progress, both Maku and Chuka knew that they still had a long way to go. As they stood together, looking out at the bustling city below, Chuka took Maku's hand in his. We've come a long way, Maku. But this is just the beginning. Maku nodded, her heart filled with a mix of hope and determination. We'll keep going, Chuka. We'll pay off the loan and build a life that we can both be proud of. And with that, they stepped forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As Chuka and Maku continued their journey together, their small business began to gain traction. Orders started coming in from across the city, and they found themselves busier than ever. For days, Maku wrestled with the temptation. She knew that returning to gambling would risk everything she and Chuka had worked so hard to rebuild. But the pressure was mounting, and the loan felt like an insurmountable obstacle. One evening, after another long day of work, Maku decided to talk to Chuka about her struggles. She found him in their small living room, going over their financial records. Chuka, can we talk? Maku asked, her voice tinged with uncertainty. Chuka looked up, sensing something was wrong. Of course, Maku. What's on your mind? Maku took a deep breath. I've been feeling overwhelmed lately. With the business, the loan, everything. I know we're making progress, but sometimes it feels like we'll never be free of this debt. Chuka put down his paperwork and walked over to her, taking her hands in his. I know it's been tough, Maku. But we're in this together. We've come so far already. We just have to stay strong. Maku hesitated, then decided to confess. I got a message from someone I used to gamble with. They offered me a chance to make some quick money. But I didn't respond. I don't want to go back to that life, Chuka, but sometimes I feel like I'm running out of options. Chuka's expression softened, and he pulled her into a comforting embrace. Maku, I'm proud of you for resisting the temptation. I know the loan is a heavy burden, but gambling isn't the answer. We'll find another way, even if it takes longer. Maku nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and guilt. She was grateful for Chuka's support, but she couldn't shake the fear that she might not be strong enough to resist forever. As the weeks went by, Chuka and Maku continued to focus on their business, but the strain of the loan and the temptations of the past were never far from their minds. They managed to stay on track, but they knew they were walking a fine line. One day a new challenge presented itself. Chuka received a call from his bank manager, informing him that the bank was restructuring and that some employees would be laid off. The news hit Chuka hard. He had been with the bank for years, and the thought of losing his job, especially with the loan still looming, was terrifying. Maku felt a pang of fear, but she refused to let it consume her. Chuka, we've faced challenges before, and we've always found a way through. If you lose your job, we'll just have to work harder on the business. Maybe it's time we expand, take on new products, or reach out to more customers. Chuka was impressed by Maku's determination. Despite everything they had been through, she was still willing to fight for their future. "You're right, Maku. We can't give up now. We'll focus on growing the business and make sure we're prepared for whatever comes next." As Chuka awaited news about his job, he and Maku poured their energy into expanding their business. They started offering new products, created an online presence, and even began attending local markets to reach more customers. One day, while at a market, they were approached by a well-dressed woman who introduced herself as Mrs. Adiola, the owner of a popular boutique in Lagos. She had noticed Maku's handcrafted items and was impressed by their quality. "Your work is beautiful," Mrs. Adiola said, examining a handmade necklace. "I'd love to carry your products in my boutique. We could set up a consignment agreement, and you'd get a percentage of each sale." Maku's eyes widened with excitement. This was the opportunity they had been hoping for, a chance to reach a wider audience and increase their income. "Thank you, Mrs. Adiola," Maku replied, trying to contain her enthusiasm. "We'd be honored to work with you." The partnership with Mrs. Adiola's boutique proved to be a turning point for Chuka and Maku. Their products quickly became popular, and sales increased steadily. With the additional income, they were able to make significant progress on repaying the loan. Chuka also received good news from his bank. He wasn't laid off, but was instead offered a position in a different department. The new role came with a slight pay cut, but it was still a job, and it provided them with the stability they needed. For the first time in months, Chuka and Maku felt like they were finally on the right path. The loan, which had once seemed like an insurmountable burden, was now within reach of being fully repaid. One evening, as they sat together, reviewing their finances, Chuka turned to Maku with a smile. "Maku, we're almost there. Just a few more payments, and the loan will be behind us." Maku felt a surge of pride and relief. "I never thought we'd make it this far, Chuka. But we did it together." Chuka nodded, his heart full of gratitude. "We've been through so much, but we didn't give up. And now, we can finally start thinking about our future, without the shadow of the loan hanging over us." As they looked ahead, they knew that their journey was far from over. But for the first time in a long time, they felt a sense of peace, knowing that they had overcome one of the biggest challenges in their lives. The last few payments on the loan were made with a mix of joy and anticipation. Each transaction brought Chuka and Maku closer to freedom. They had worked tirelessly to repay the debt, and now, they could see the light at the end of the tunnel. On the day of the final payment, Chuka and Maku went to the bank together. As Chuka handed over the money, they both felt a wave of relief wash over them. The loan that had once been a source of so much pain and struggle was finally paid off. As they left the bank, Maku turned to Chuka, her eyes shining with tears of happiness. "Chuka, we did it, we're finally free." Chuka smiled, pulling her into a tight embrace. "We did it, Maku. And now, we can start building the life we've always wanted." With the loan finally behind them, Chuka and Maku were ready to start a new chapter in their lives. They continued to grow their business, and their relationship became stronger with each passing day. The challenges they had faced together had forged an unbreakable bond between them. But life, as they knew, was full of surprises. As they looked to the future, they knew that new challenges would arise. But this time, they were ready. Together. As Chuka and Maku continued to expand their business and strengthen their relationship, they began to attract attention from larger competitors. Their handmade items were now featured in multiple boutiques, and their online presence had grown significantly. But with success came new challenges. One day, they received a letter from a major corporation that specialized in mass-produced goods. The corporation had noticed the success of Chuka and Maku's products and wanted to offer them a deal to mass-produce their items under the corporation's brand. The offer was tempting, promising a substantial upfront payment that could further secure their financial future. However, the deal also meant that Chuka and Maku would lose control over their designs, and their products would no longer be handmade. The corporation's brand would take center stage, and their personal touch would be lost. Maku felt conflicted. "Chuka, this is a lot of money. It could help us grow even more, and we wouldn't have to worry about finances anymore. But I'm not sure if it's the right thing to do." Chuka thought for a moment, considering their journey. "Maku, we've built this business with our own hands. We've poured our heart and soul into every product we make. If we accept this deal, we might gain financial security, but we'll lose what makes our business special." Maku nodded, understanding Chuka's perspective. "You're right, Chuka. The loan is behind us now, and we've proven that we can succeed on our own terms. We don't need to sacrifice our values for money." After much discussion, they decided to decline the corporation's offer and stay true to their vision. They chose to continue creating handmade items, focusing on quality over quantity, and maintaining their unique brand identity. Their decision to decline the offer didn't come without consequences. The corporation, seeing their refusal as a threat, decided to launch a competing line of products at a much lower price. This move created a significant challenge for Chuka and Maku, as customers were tempted by the cheaper alternatives. Sales began to drop, and the pressure mounted once again. But instead of panicking, Chuka and Maku decided to double down on their commitment to quality and personal connection with their customers. They started offering workshops on crafting, sharing their skills with others, and building a loyal community around their brand. One day, while hosting a workshop, Maku received a message from a customer who had been a loyal supporter from the beginning. The customer expressed how much she valued the personal touch and quality of their products, and how she appreciated the story behind each item. The message reminded Maku of why they had started the business in the first place, not just to make money, but to create something meaningful and lasting. As time passed, the corporation's cheaper products flooded the market, but they lacked the authenticity and craftsmanship that Chuka and Maku's items had. Slowly but surely, customers began to return, recognizing the value of genuine, handmade goods. One day, Chuka and Maku were approached by a young couple who had been inspired by their story. The couple wanted to start their own business but were unsure if they should focus on quick profits or stay true to their values. Chuka smiled and shared their journey. "We were once in your shoes, faced with a choice between money and integrity. It's tempting to take the easy path, but remember, true success isn't just about how much you earn. It's about staying true to your principles and creating something you're proud of." Maku added, "We chose to focus on quality and the relationships we built with our customers. It wasn't always easy, but it was worth it. The money will come, but it's your integrity that will sustain you in the long run." The young couple thanked them for their advice, and Chuka and Maku watched as they left, feeling a sense of fulfillment knowing they had passed on the lessons they had learned. As Chuka and Maku reflected on their journey, they realized that the most important lesson they had learned was the value of staying true to themselves. They had faced numerous challenges, from financial struggles to temptations, but they had always chosen the path of integrity and authenticity. Their story was not just about repaying a loan or building a successful business. It was about understanding that true success is measured not by wealth, but by the values and principles you uphold along the way. They had discovered that it's easy to be swayed by the allure of quick money and shortcuts, but in the end, what truly matters is the legacy you leave behind, the relationships you build, the lives you touch, and the impact you make. Chuka and Maku had learned that the journey is just as important as the destination, and that by staying true to their values, they had created something far more valuable than money. They had built a life they could be proud of. And so, their story ended not with a conclusion, but with a new beginning, a future filled with hope, integrity, and the promise of even greater things to come. Don't miss out on this intense and emotional story. Subscribe, like, and share to support more captivating content. Comment below your thoughts on Chuka and Maku's decisions.